There's going to be opportunities to earn snaps going into 2025 and maybe to protect Jackson Arnold.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
So we discussed on our show yesterday that there's some discussion about Jackson Arnold coming back for 2025. I know that there's been it's been a roller coaster ride at quarterback this season, and it's created some uncertainty for what the future holds. Well, Brent Venables, count him as somebody that fully anticipates and expects Jackson Arnold will be back with the Sooners next year.
Yeah, and I've told that to a few people, like, what makes you think that Jackson Arnold would leave from this circumstance? To me, I think the best way to play this out is for Brent Venables and whomever the new offensive coordinator is, they have an actual quarterback competition in the spring. And whomever wins that, based upon their performances, whoever wins it, that's your quarterback going into next season. The other one, red shirts. Because if you really think about it, Michael Hawkins initially coming in here, the plan was for him to redshirt this season and play behind Jackson Arnold while Jackson Arnold plays for the next 2 years, potentially 3 years. Then Michael Hawkins would take over and he'd be the quarterback for about 2 years. Then you'd go into the next quarterback down the line based upon whoever's here. That was always the plan. Well, you had to burn it because of the circumstances that went down over the last, between South Carolina and Tennessee. You had a lot of things that happened in between there. Well, actually on those 2 games. So you had to play both. If they actually provide a true competition and allow for Michael Hawkins and Jackson Arnold to really battle it out and make it a fair competition and don't name somebody immediately, I think you get both of them to come back next season, and I think Michael Hawkins is just fine with redshirting, and I think Jackson Arnold will be just fine with redshirting because we know that both of those players want to be the quarterback of the University of Oklahoma. Michael Hawkins Jr. being a legacy because his dad played for Brent Venables. Jackson Arnold's always had a dream of playing here. Remember, the old regime didn't even recruit Jackson Arnold, and he still wanted to come here. And as soon as there was a change, he now ends up here at Oklahoma with the opportunity. And so, unfortunately, he's going to get another offensive coordinator. This will be his 3rd one in the 3 years that he's been here, but it don't matter. If he really is JFA, as we've all been saying, he's going to show up and show out. But it's good to hear that Venables he's very confident in it. Now, I've had somebody ask me this, John. I'm curious to your thought. They felt like it was more campaigning by Brent Venables to get Jackson Arnold back rather than confidence that he was coming back. What do you think take out of it?
I mean, I could see that line of thinking. At the same time, I don't know if Brent Venables speaks so confidently about this if he doesn't have some understanding that Jackson Arnold's planning on being there.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you don't go into that and go on that kind of, I don't want to call it a tirade, but rant might be the best word for it.
That's fair.
If you don't anticipate or haven't had the conversation with Jackson Arnold that he is planning and anticipating coming back. It's been a roller coaster ride. There's been a lot of emotions for everybody involved, the coaches, the coordinators, the quarterbacks themselves. And in this day and age of the transfer portal and NIL, everybody's kind of eager to jump to the conclusion like, oh, yep, they're gone or he's gone or, one of them staying. You can only keep one. Well, how about a scenario where you actually get to keep both? Because maybe the NIL and the transfer portal and all that isn't as big a deal to these 2 quarterbacks as it might be to someone else.
Yeah. Maybe they care about playing in Oklahoma.
Yeah. Do both feel like they could be starters at the collegiate level? Sure. Of course they do. But that doesn't mean that they want to jump to some other program and try to make it work. Mm-hmm. They want to make it work here. Maybe. I'm not going to speak for them because I don't know them. I don't know what their situations and what they're thinking exactly, but I definitely foresee a scenario where they can keep both guys and continue to develop both guys and move forward. I mean, we've seen in the past, right? You only need one great year of college football to cement yourself as a top 50 pick in the NFL draft. We've seen it time and time and time again. And listen, whatever happens with Oklahoma's quarterback future, it's going to be okay. so much is going to come down to what the offensive coordinator situation looks like and not having this kind of injury bad luck moving forward. I mean, this has to be like the one-off aberration because your quarterbacks have suffered. If it's not, we're going to have to get the sage out and go bless the practice field and facility, go bless the workout room, and try and evaporate whatever's going on at the Switzer Center to prevent all these injuries from happening again.
Yeah, that's the one thing. You got to just find a way to just stop getting injured. Should we put everybody in bubble wrap? It feels like that's what we probably should do. Just find a way to make sure that nobody gets hurt. But no, we've talked about the snake bittenness. It is what it is. And so now we have to, the goal today now is to develop. And, we talk about this a lot. And I don't think a lot of fans truly understand how development works at the collegiate level. Development isn't that you're going to learn how to do everything within the first 3 to 5 games. Some players are that naturally talented and they can. Majority of them takes a year or two for them to really get it down and be actually developed. Mm-hmm. That's what Bill Beatonbow's been really good at. He gets guys in and he develops them over a 2-year span. And some of these guys haven't got a chance to have their 2 years of actual development. So, Tyler Guyton is one of the exceptions to the rule. He came in 1 year. He didn't play much. He plays his second year. He goes in the first round. You get that. Anton Harrison was in a similar situation. Walter Rouse transfers here and he becomes a draft pick. Before he wasn't going to get drafted. He comes here. He ends up getting drafted. You see that quite often. And so, what we're trying to do here is we were trying to do the actual development, but then you had to throw a lot of these young players out there in the fire because
injuries.
Exactly. Injuries, and all the older players that were supposed to have been there for development decide to leave because they probably should have left when we first got here, but I digress. I like the fact that Jackson Arnold that Brent Venables is assuming that Jackson Arnold wants to come back and that he feels like it's a done deal. That's a plus to me. We need that. We need to have him back here. We need him and Michael Hawkins playing together. We need it to be a real competition, so somebody's pushing somebody. That way, when we go into next season, we'll feel comfortable. Because, we still got Brendan Zurbrugg. I'm not going to rule him out. He was very talented in Ohio high school. He was balling out. We're just now going to have to, see what it looks like.
You talk about development, and the guy that really comes to mind is Garrett Nussmeier. He never threw more than 100 passes in a season until this year. And he's looking like one of the better quarterbacks in the SEC. Those 3 interceptions this past week against Texas A&M, removed. He's been one of the better quarterbacks in SEC play. You look at a guy like Carson Beck over at Georgia. He sat behind Stetson Bennett for years, right? And got an opportunity to develop. And over the last couple of years has looked like one of the better quarterbacks in the SEC, but he sat first, right? For several years. Jackson Arnold had 1 year to sit behind Dylan Gabriel and had an opportunity to learn. He's only 5 starts, 6 games into his collegiate career right now. So who he is as a quarterback, the story is not completely written. Same with Michael Hawkins. The story is not at all completely written for Michael Hawkins as a quarterback, and they've got an opportunity to have still very successful careers at the University of Oklahoma. We just have to be patient. So much of it is not necessarily what the quarterbacks have done and not done. A lot of it is, and I'll plead guilty to this, putting these high expectations on players before they have an opportunity to go out and prove themselves worthy of those expectations. And again, I plead guilty to that. I'll take accountability for maybe getting a little bit overhyped and overexcited about the talent. And I still believe the talent is there, but it takes time to develop that and have a feel for what it looks like to play at the collegiate level. Not everybody's going to hit the ground running all the time. And especially in Oklahoma's situation where you have an offensive line that's not great and been dinged up, and you have a wide receiver room that is really, really dinged up and very inexperienced. It's going to lead to some of these issues that we're seeing with Oklahoma's offense. But hey, we've seen some positive signs, and enough positive signs for me to feel really comfortable about going into next year with Hawkins and with Arnold. If you want to have them in a quarterback competition, great. If you feel like over the next 4 games, that you see enough from Jackson Arnold, I say 4 plus maybe hopefully a bowl game, you see enough out of the Jackson Arnold that you can feel comfortable with him as your starter going into next year, I'm cool with that too. It's just making sure you have an answer to the question, who's going to be my quarterback in 2025?
Yeah, you got to have an answer, and that's going to be the most critical thing. We have to know that we're going to have a quarterback in 2025. I mean, even if you go to the third, Brendan Zurbrugg, and you do that, you're going to have to portal somebody in because you need some veteran presence. But if you can keep Hawkins and Jackson Arnold, you start the next year a lot better.
Brent Venables had a lot more to say in his press conference. He went a long time on Wednesday with the media. A couple things really stood out. We're going to discuss those coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.